In a recent financial earnings call, Take-Two President Karl Slatoff mentioned that the company was impressed with the sales Nintendo has been doing with the Switch, but they don't have anything else to announce coming to the platform right now. To give you the actual quote, here's what he said. In terms of bringing other titles to the Switch, obviously we've done a few titles already. We've done NBA, WWE, LA Noire. We look at this like any other platform opportunity to the extent that we look at our development costs. Is the game right for the platform? What does the audience look like? What's the install base? So when we do believe there's an opportunity to do something on the Switch, then you'll hear from our labels. We are impressed with the growth. We're impressed with the units that have been sold into the market so far, so we're very sanguine at this point. But we've nothing more to announce specifically at this point. So basically, good job guys, but we already gave you some games and don't really have anything more for you at this point. And I'm not saying this necessarily confirms like, oh, they're not planning or working on anything else right now, but to give this sort of broad generalization at a financial call like this, they could have just said something like, oh, the future is looking bright with, our companies and the Switch or something like that. And this sort of reiterates a point, an issue I've had with how many of these companies handle their relationship with the Switch audience. Like, again, look at this quote. Talking about who the audience is, what do they want? Please. Who of you, let me know in the comments, seriously, who of you think the games they've chosen would be better suited than, say, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 5 or Red Dead Redemption? If you don't know, Take-Two owns Rockstar, who makes those games. I feel like sometimes us more hardcore people take that for granted, like everybody knows who these companies are and what they own, and then people with actual lives outside the internet and video games stumble on these videos and like, who the hell's Take-Two? But seriously, how could you pick these games over those games and then be like, I guess we'll see. And you can't even give me the, oh, those games are too adult for a console geared towards children. For one, ha. Two, we've already had Grand Theft Auto on Nintendo platforms. There was that DS or 3DS one that was at least exclusive to the platform for a little bit. I don't know if it stayed that way. Thirdly, if you think that, you clearly haven't played LA Noire, as that game is very adult. I mean, people get like sexually assaulted in it and such. And look at the issues these games they chose had. I mean, WWE 2K18, do I even have to address it? This port was pretty much the embodiment of awful. It's basically a meme in the Switch community at this point. So wow, big surprise that didn't find a big following on the Switch. NBA 2K18, I don't know how good or bad the game actually was when playing it really, but I know it was one of the big subjects in that whole needing to download the game issue we discovered early on with the Switch, where only a fraction of the game was actually on the game card when you bought it physically, and you'd have to download the rest of it to experience the full game. And it's like, oh, I hope you have extra storage. Ha ha ha. So great, another winner. LA Noire, I don't really know much about the Switch release, but even as a game, back when it came out initially on the 360 and PS3, it was pretty meh, in my opinion. And that's why I don't get, like, if you don't want to support the platform, fine. If you don't see the value in it, I get it. I totally get it. I do. You don't think your games are going to be able to perform well. I disagree if you brought over the right ones and did them well. But that's your decision. But why try if you're not really going to try, essentially? Even if you ported the base version of, say, Red Dead Redemption on the Switch, maybe it would be more work than each of these games were, the ones you chose. But I'd bet you any amount of money that game would sell more than all of these ones you chose to bring over combined. Times 2 probably. And I'm sure you all see it, so they surely do. And that's why I don't get it. With Red Dead, maybe because Red Dead 2 won't be coming to the Switch, but I think you'd get a lot of people like me who, own all the platforms, and if I was going to want to catch up and revisit Red Dead 1 before 2 came out, I would definitely want to buy it on the Switch so I could, play it anywhere, whenever, that whole deal. But if that is the issue, why not GTA 5? Again, just the base version, the original. I still get people yammering about how, oh, the Switch probably couldn't run GTA 5, even though it initially came out on the 360 and PS3. I'm sorry, I've said it in the past, pretty much any game that came out on the 360 and PS3, if anybody's argument is, oh, it won't be able to run on the Switch, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And again, even the games you did decide to port, you did such a piss-poor job on, like, again, the WWE game. Why even do it? The few copies you did sell is only going to leave players feeling burned, and they're gonna not want to buy stuff from you in the future. At least not on the Switch. I mean, do you want the consumers to hate you with decisions like that? Like, that's the only thing I could think of. I don't get what the strategy could be, but yeah, right now, I'd certainly be skeptical of anything coming out under the Take-Two, specifically that 2K label. To make it clear, I'm not irritated over, like, the big Rockstar titles and that not being on the Switch, okay? Obviously, I think it'd be beneficial to both Nintendo and Take-Two, as well as the consumers. But when you're going to bring games over anyway to test the waters, essentially, why not, and especially if you're going to do ports, why not bring over ports of games that would surely do well? Or at least, if you're not going to do that, make the games you do bring over actually work. Business-wise, these decisions, they don't make much sense to me. Maybe you can explain it to me, why you would port over garbage like WWE 2K18 instead of putting that focus on doing something like a Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead port. Like, if they're really just not planning to do more on the Switch, if they're turned off by how the games they've delivered so far have performed, then they would have been better off, in my opinion, not bringing anything over in the first place. Because that way, at least you wouldn't have left this disgusting taste in the player's mouth from feeling burned from these initial releases. If you had done nothing yet, brought no games onto the Switch at this point, you'd probably have more people excited in the potential of the release of those big games, the games players actually want. But now, even if those games do come over at some point, I've got to be concerned as to whether or not they're going to be garbage ports, because the company's already shown they clearly aren't interested in delivering quality to these Nintendo Switch players. And as a result, I can't blame those players for not wanting to support them in the future. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Take-Two. I don't want to say pulling support, but it certainly, by the language, at least throttling back on support for the Switch going forward. Do you think they should have just went with maybe one of those big game ports? Like, instead of bringing all the stuff they did decide to bring over, just put all that focus into like a GTA 5 or something? And again, even if it were just basically copy and pasted from the 360 and PS3 versions, I think people would have preferred that better. As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.